If you're a nonprofit CEO or executive director, you are likely exhausted right now. But you're facing a dangerous paradox. You cannot tell whether you are just worn out or actually done. Between budget crises and board conflicts and funding cliffs, of course you're running on empty. But in my 30 plus years of experience helping leaders navigate change and succession, I've seen that burnout and readiness to leave feel identical from the inside, yet they require two completely different answers. Mixing them up will cost you and the mission you love years. So today, I'm going to give you the exact three-part framework to tell the difference between a hard season and the signal to hand off. Let's start with sign number one, the rest diagnostic. To understand which one you're dealing with, we have to look at the cruelest irony of executive leadership. Burnout and the readiness to leave sharing the exact same symptoms. You feel the same physical heaviness, the same dread on Sunday night, the same quiet panic, wondering if you still have what it takes to lead. But while they share the exact same symptoms, they do not share the same cure. Rest fixes tired. Rest does not fix done. When you are just worn out from a brutal fiscal year, a real break, taking some time off actually works. Time away, delegating a massive project, or stepping back for a few weeks helps reset you, helps kind of stabilize your baseline. You can literally feel the energy return and the mission starts to feel like yours again. But when you are finished, nothing reconnects you. You rest, you take the sabbatical, you push through a successful gala, and that hollow, empty feeling does not lift. And it's that emptiness is your signal. The diagnostic isn't how tired you are right now. It is whether rest is actively working to bring you back. Right now, the entire nonprofit sector is running on empty. We saw a structural 17-point burnout spike across the field in just 1 year. This exhaustion isn't personal failure. It's environmental. It's what's happening in the sector. And that is precisely why you cannot trust exhaustion alone to tell you the truth about your future. But realizing that rest might not be the answer brings us to sign number two, the caretaker question. Now, to figure out whether you need a break or an exit, there's one question that cuts directly through the fog. But most executive coaches only give you half of it. And the half they leave out is the only part that actually matters for a mission-driven leader. The first half of the question is simple. If I weren't so tired, would I still love this work? If the answer is yes, you're worn out. Rest is your prescription. If the answer is no, or if you genuinely can't remember, that isn't fatigue. That is the realization, quiet though it might be, that the role no longer fits who you've become. But here is the second half of that question, the part that only applies when you are the steward, the caretaker of a mission. If the answer is no, who is paying the price for me staying? That single question turns a personal dilemma into a steward's obligation. It shifts the conversation away from your personal endurance and directly into the health of the mission. And for a nonprofit CEO, a seasoned leader, that is the only conversation that actually counts. If you're feeling this right now, hear me clearly. You are not broken and you're not a failure. In fact, data shows that roughly 1 in 3 nonprofit leaders plan to leave within the next 2 years, with many having stayed 10 years or more before finally stepping down. You are simply reaching a natural life cycle crossroads where rest can no longer fix the alignment. Now, if you realize you are approaching that crossroads, the hardest part is knowing how to bring it up without causing panic. And if your board is already asking questions about the future, or if you know this transition, this change, you know it's coming, I built a free resource called the Board Conversation Starter. It gives you the exact word-for-word language to raise succession with your executive committee without them thinking you are abruptly resigning. I put the direct link in the description below. Because once you honestly answer that 2-part question, everything changes about what you do next. But there is a final physical signal that reveals whether you have overstayed. And it actually shows up in the last place you would ever think to look. This is sign number 3. I call it this immunity to newness. Throughout my career, I've been through standard burnout more times than I can count. And every single time, I had a reliable system to fix it. I would start a new project, build a new coalition, increase my physical activity, my workout, or I'd come to all kinds of new workout programs and exercises, or take a strategic step away. My biological energy would spike and the excitement would return, and it worked every single time until it didn't. After leading a major organizational merger, I felt that familiar heavy restlessness, burning out again. So I did what I'd done before. I threw myself into a massive new challenge and started my doctorate. It was brilliant, rigorous work. But this time, I noticed a terrifying physical and emotional shift. It did nothing to reconnect me to the mission. That lack of a spark wasn't fatigue. It was the signal I had spent years training myself to catch. My capacity for the work hadn't run out, but my life cycle with that specific mission and organization had. It was time to leave. Both transitions that I went through with those 2 organizations were agonizing, not because I had failed, but because of how deeply I loved those organizations. And that is the unspoken truth of executive leadership that nobody tells you. The love that makes you want to stay is the exact same love that can hold the mission back. But reconciling, your own feelings is only half the battle, which brings us to the uncomfortable reality most leaders try to ignore. What actually happens to the organization's culture and momentum while you wait to make up your mind. The cost of getting this diagnostic wrong, whether it's simply burnout, a hard season, or it's time to leave. The cost of getting that wrong does not fall on you first. And that cost compounds across 3 distinct layers. First, it costs you your health, your joy, and ultimately your legacy. When you stay in a role you have outgrown, you just don't lose years feeling hollow. You slowly start to resent the very mission you sacrificed your life to build. Second, it costs the organization. When a finished leader stays just out of duty, the mission quietly stops growing. Things kind of really do come to a halt, and the entire structure morphs around one person's diminishing energy. Third, it costs you the handoff itself. And this is where the math gets dangerous. Right now, fewer than 1 in 3 nonprofit boards have a written succession plan. That means if you are the informal plan, the longer you wait to acknowledge the truth, the less leverage and choice you have. You turn what could be a celebratory, graceful handoff into an organizational emergency. You push through, you stay out of loyalty, and the entire time, the mission you're trying to protect is the exact thing paying the price. But realizing it's time to step aside doesn't mean you have to jump off a cliff tomorrow. In fact, understanding this final distinction changes everything about how you plan your exit and how you protect your legacy in the process. Almost everyone in the nonprofit sector treats an executive exit as the sad part, the loss, the organizational risk, the thing we just have to survive. I want to challenge that directly because I believe it is fundamentally wrong. And holding on to that mindset is costing missions and our organizations that deserve better. Leaving is not the failure. Staying too long is. In mission-driven work, knowing when to hand off the baton is the highest form of leadership there is, not the end of it. A worn-out leader asks, "Can I get through this?" A finished leader asks, "Who should carry this next?" One is about survival. The other is about taking care of the mission you love enough to let someone else lead it into its next chapter. Now, if you've been honest with yourself while watching this, that heavy, empty feeling might actually be the most useful diagnostic signal you have received in years. It is not telling you that you failed. It is telling you that the organization you built is now bigger than one person. That means it worked. And the bravest, most loving thing a seasoned nonprofit executive leader can do is recognize when it's time to build that handoff on purpose while you still have the choice. And if you're navigating those lonely executive decisions right now, make sure you hit subscribe to join our community here. I unpack the hard behind-the-scenes realities of mission-driven leadership on this channel every single week. Because once you realize that building, creating a graceful exit is the last great thing you get to do for that organization, that entire process starts with a single conversation that most leaders dread, the talk with your board. And there is a right way and a dangerous way to open that dialogue. The leaders who protect their legacy and their mission don't just walk into an executive committee meeting and announce they are thinking about leaving. They do something completely different. To see exactly how to start that board conversation without triggering panic or making them think you are resigning, click the video on your screen right now.